We are live. We are live. Welcome to college football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football, and if you do as well. If you need a little bit of college football extra content to get you through the days, to get you through the nights, subscribe to this ever-growing channel. Smash that like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends. Share it with your psychiatrist, your priest, your cat, and your dog. Share this video right now on social media all over the fruited plains. We are here in the corner, in the house that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kirk Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Come on in. You know how it works. We do a monologue, we get to your comments, and then we're going to get to your phone calls. And the phone calls are going to be fire. They're going to be fire today. This afternoon, breaking news all over the place. But first, we have to get to our sponsor, the Blue Ridge Coffee Crafters. Welcome to the Blue Ridge Coffee Crafters. We invite you to discover the Blue Ridge Coffee Crafters difference. The clean, hot air roasted coffee produces a smoother, a richer, healthier coffee that is less bitter, less acidic. Our hot air roasted coffee uses convection heat to loft the beans for a very even heat transfer. The clean, the bright taste that people rave about is achieved by roasting the bean quickly and evenly while suspended on a bed of hot air. From craft to cup, hand-picked coffee beans. This is the smoothest coffee, the little general, the moderator who rules with an iron fist over the PATC community. This is the smoothest coffee she has ever had. She's missing it right now as she visits her family in Mexico City. She loves it. We love it. If you want to try it, go to the link provided in the description box below the video. And if you want to support this channel when you acquire the best bag of coffee beans you ever have, put PATC in the comment section of the website. We thank you so much for your support. And also there's the description box. There's a link in the description box where you can go to our merchandise store. Let's not waste any more time. Breaking news. We did an episode this morning. Ross Dellinger, holy smokes, talks about the subset 7. Well, now we're going to call it the Magnificent 7 because Brett McMurphy, out of nowhere comes in with the tweet. And let's take a look at it right now. Let's take a look at it. If I know how to work this thing, which I probably don't, let's amp this thing up. I'm sorry. I have been scrambling all morning to get this live show going. Brett McMurphy at 1:15, 18 minutes ago. 18 minutes ago. Clemson, Florida State, Miami of Florida, North Carolina State, Virginia, and Virginia Tech are the Magnificent 7 ACC schools that sources told Action Network. These schools, as Ross Dellinger reported, have met in the past several months with lawyers examining grant of rights to determine just how unbreakable it is. The ACC deal runs through 2036. So those are the 7. People were speculating all over the place. What are the 7? I was asking the questions. Who are the 7? The last one that I put out included these 7 schools, but it was just a guess. I had absolutely no knowledge, no steam of who the 7 were. I just calculated that maybe, for example, North Carolina could not be in this meeting without North Carolina State. Virginia and Virginia Tech would have to be in this meeting together. Public schools. I couldn't see North Carolina Chapel Hill being in this meeting, in this subset meeting, this Magnificent 7 meeting. You know, they're in this meeting. They're not talking about changing the floral arrangements in the ACC offices, in the ACC meetings. They're not having these meetings to discuss maybe we should tweak the ACC football championship trophy. They're not having these the Magnificent 7 meetings to just engineer a 17 voting block to hammer out specific issues within the conference. The Magnificent 7, this is about examining the grant of rights to determine just how unbreakable it is. And who knows how deep this goes. But there's Brett McMurphy's breaking news. But I want to dial it back just a second here. Just a second. Hold on. Again, look, the last tweet I had those 7. I had no knowledge of it, no steam. It was just a guess. I was trying to figure out what 7 could possibly get together without, having those, like Duke. It was just a guess. So I had no steam on it. In fact, let's go back here. December 26, 2022, when we were going to go and talk about the Florida State money perch, who talked to us on December 5th, the 12th. There was another day in there, and then December 26th, when we finally figured out that he was being serious, that Florida State was lining up their ducks in a row to potentially challenge the ACC grant of rights, when we went out there on December 26th, but then we were asked to stand down. I know there's a lot of people in this channel, but if you new people and you weren't there December 26th, go back to it. The first half an hour I apologize to the PATC community because I advertised the show Florida State Money Perch. We gave some hints of what was going to happen. And then on March 31st, we had another live show, talked about it. And then last night, we talked about how fluid things were. Not once did the Florida State Money Perch tell us to peek around the corner anything about a Magnificent Seven schools meeting behind having Cloak and Dagger meetings. No. And then we reached out to Smorden when this news broke, and he knew nothing of it. So we definitely did not have this story. This is a Cloak and Dagger. And I've asked the question on Twitter. I said I got a lot of questions, no answers. I got 0 answers. I asked this question on Twitter. I said, this story was, okay, Ross Dellinger broke this story this morning. This morning. The day that the ACC meetings, the 3-day meeting, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, where the meeting's just going to start, this news broke. So I asked the question, did the other 7 ACC schools just learn about the Magnificent Seven the same time we did? Holy smokes. And if yes, who leaked this? And why did they leak this to Sports Illustrated and Ross Dellinger? I am so interested to listen to your comments, to listen to your phone calls. We could go on with this all day, all night, and we might have to. Because you know what? We talked about it yesterday. Things are fluid. Things are hot. And we all know the reasons why. It's come on. The forces of consolidation is still going on. Washington and Oregon want to keep swinging away to try to get into the Big Ten. The Pac-12 is trying to get a deal together that might keep the conference going in 5 years from now. But does that solve anything for Colorado and Arizona, who wants to be among the top schools and the top conferences lot longer than 5 years? I don't know. The Pac-12 meetings are going on right now today. Big Ten meetings are going on. And it sounds like they're going to kick the can down the road once again when it comes to their scheduling, trying to figure out their future scheduling. Scott Dochterman of The Athletic had an article written. I was going to do an episode on that. But this is so much going on, I can't get to it all. But let's just say it's status quo for the Big Ten when trying to come up with a future schedule, future permanent opponents. I was going to talk about the top 10 receivers in the college football today, ranked by ESPN. We'll get to that later this week, I think, I hope. Who knows at this point? So breaking news, Ross Dellinger, the Magnificent Seven have been meeting for months. I will add this. I have heard from somebody who I trust who did say that the ACC schools did not know about this secret Cloak and Dagger meetings of the Magnificent Seven until today. We'll see if that holds up. But it sounds like that's probably true. And you're talking about a gut shot. And again, peek around the corner, we have not been convinced at all that this dissolution theory would work in practice. But why would those 7 schools be meeting like this if dissolution wasn't one of the options they're talking about? Or is it just that they're planning on going one after the other and challenging the ACC grant of rights? We were also told by the Florida State Money Perch back in December 26th that these schools would not be working together on challenging the grant of rights, that they would be vulnerable to collusion. Was that wrong? We'll peek around the corner, have to take an L on that. We said that all the way back in December 26th. But obviously, if there's 7 schools meeting Cloak and Dagger style with the other schools not even knowing, that's collusion, my friends. So it looks like Peek Around the Corner is going to take a big L on that one. The Florida State Money Perch, he knew that the Florida State was gearing up. He did not know about the 7. It doesn't sound like anybody did until this morning. I'm going to get to your comments right now. Then I'm going to get to your phone calls because, ladies and gentlemen, I have a lot of questions. I have more bubbling up, and I have 0 answers here at Peek Around the Corner. I've been on the phone. We've been poking around. We found out our Florida State Money Perch knew nothing about the Magnificent 7 meeting. What are they talking about? They've been meeting for months in secret. What are they talking about? Now, if you haven't watched, if you don't know what I'm talking about, go to Ross Dellinger, Sports Illustrated article. Go back to the episode that we put out this morning. It's all in there. It's an unbelievable article. The most impactful, important realignment article in the last so many months. Okay, let's get to your comments. I know they're just apt. I'm way behind. I want to thank everybody for coming in on a special edition Monday afternoon. We might have a show tonight. There's going to be a lot. Things are very fluid right now, as you can see. James Foster, thanks for coming on in. Skull Ducky, how's Greg today? Greg is on the edge of his seat. Gerald Jones, Mr. Buckeye. Good afternoon, Randy Taylor, Kyler Visser. He's hoping for a Pac-12 resolution this Wednesday. Secret agent missed it by 1. North Carolina State instead of Duke. D5 Terps. It's the most wonderful time of the year, Mr. Maryland. Mr. Terp, the Sassy 7. Same James says, let's go. Jeff Olson needs a little bit of extra content. The evil Badger, Jeff Olson, is in the house. Mr. Monkey says, gotta go, be back later. We'll probably be here, Mr. Monkey says. Aztec, Luis Carlos Diaz. Let's go. I finally made a live show. Cloak and Dagger for lunch. Jim Reese is in the house. Bob Dolan is in the house. Holy smokes. Louis Pop is in the house. Monavision. Can we go with the better name? Maybe the Skedaddle 7 or give them a Slip 7? Subset 7 isn't very PATC. You are correct. We're not going to go Subset 7 anymore. Our web comes in and says, Dellinger just confirmed McMurphy's report on the Magnificent 7, not that he needed to. Wow. Let's go through those 7 schools once again. As reported by the one and only, the great Brett McMurphy. Clemson, that was a given. Florida State, given. Miami of Florida, that was a given. UNC, that was a given. Then North Carolina State, and I thought they would have to be included. I just couldn't see North Carolina, Chapel Hill, doing these Cloak and Dagger stuff without North Carolina State, the other large public Power 5 institution. Then you had Virginia. I couldn't see Virginia being out of this because North Carolina was in it. And Virginia Tech, didn't see how Virginia could do it without Virginia Tech. So those are the Magnificent 7. So that leaves out Duke, the brilliant, incredible brand of Duke basketball and the great research university. Duke has not been in these meetings. Louisville, the newest ACC member, has not been in these meetings. The University of Pittsburgh has not been in these meetings. Boston College has not been in these meetings. AAU member, Georgia Tech, has not been in these meetings. Notre Dame has not been in these meetings. Am I missing somebody? I'm probably missing somebody. But I think we all get the point. We all get the point. Now, here's the deal. If this dissolution theory can actually work in practice, if that's actually something that can happen, there were articles written on this way back. I want to say late 2021, definitely 2022. There was definitely an article written somewhere in North Carolina. I want to say September of 2022 that talked about Notre Dame would have a vote in this dissolution. That they would have a full vote. So that would be your 8 votes. And then in the Ross Dellinger, and I can't wait to get to your phone calls. Holy smokes. The Ross Dellinger article also, he mentioned, the possibility, what if these 7 schools are thinking about dissolving the conference by challenging the Gore in the courts or dissolving the conference? Again, the SI article didn't say that either one of these possibilities was more than the other. Maybe both wouldn't work. But if you speculate further, which SI did, would these 7 schools try to create their own conference? Maybe add a couple more. But then again, would that create enough value for potential media companies? Would that even work? Would that even help a North Carolina, a Florida State? I'm guessing probably not. Just like the Pac-12 schools, they have some schools that are very, very valuable. They would be more valuable outside of that one region conference. I think it's the same for many of these ACC schools. So I would gather that they're meeting to potentially challenge the grant of rights in court or dissolve the conference. And in doing so, in accordance to the state, according to this theory, according to the state laws of North Carolina, they would need 8 votes. Those are 7. Notre Dame would be an 8. But who would vote for this if they weren't sure that they had a landing spot that was better than their current ACC? In other words, would those Magnificent 7 and Notre Dame, those 8 institutions, would all 8 of them have a landing spot in the SEC and the Big Ten? Or would a couple of those Magnificent 7 schools consider just going to the Big 12 and get this over with? I don't know. I do not know. I do not know. Anyways, let's get to your comments. Then we're going to get to your phone calls. Cameron B., thank you so much for the super chat. ESPN isn't letting anyone out of that contract. I don't think ESPN is going to be a supporter of anybody breaking. Well, first of all, it's the ACC that owns the media rights of these schools. We talked about it last night. We've been talking about it for months. If ESPN plays an invisible hand in all of this, which I don't think they will, but if they do, then definitely the SEC is going to be eating first when it comes to the ACC schools, directing them over to the SEC. But you're correct, Cameron B. I do not think ESPN is just going to be willing to let this play out unless once again, there's something in that grant of rights. There's just something in that grant of rights that Florida State believes they've got over the ACC. Is there something in there, in those extended grant of rights from 2027 to 2036, that Florida State doesn't believe they were given the considerations enough of a value to where they should stick with that 9 years extension of the Gore? What did the ACC promise Florida State? Did they just promise the creation of the ACC network, or did they promise Florida State the creation of an ACC network plus this is how much you should expect to get out of the network 5, 6, 7, 8 years down the line? I don't know the answers. None of us have seen the extended grant of rights. There's a lot in play here. There is a lot in play, but when you have Mike Alford coming out, Florida State athletic director, right before this 3-day meeting saying we're talking to athletic directors all over the country about this. And then we find out today the Magnificent Seven is going on for months in secret, and the other schools didn't know about it in the ACC. Florida State's not playing. Now, they may not be successful down the road. Clemson might not be. North Carolina might not be. They might not be able to get out of this. But it seems that they're putting a lot of time, a lot of effort, probably a lot of money, putting a lot of lawyers in the room. They're not playing, that's for sure. Okay, let's open up the phone lines. We'll continue. Thank you so much, Cameron, for your generosity to this channel. I appreciate it so much. We have a lot of comments. Lou's asking, where in the world is Duke? Why are they not in the Magnificent Seven discussions? But we got to open up the phone lines because I know people have a lot to talk about. You know what? That might have been a little too early because it's not showing up for me to grab that number. Yeah, I'm not getting that phone call. The phones are off the chain. It is, I don't know what's going on. If somebody is on the line, please hang up. Hello, is someone there? No, nobody is there. Okay, I think we corrected it. Holy smokes, this thing is haywire. Holy moly. Is somebody there? Okay, try it. We're going to try this again. Sorry about that. Something is going wrong here. Try another call. It's the Secret Seven, Greg. Cloak and Dagger. Thank you, Nathan, for the super chat. I appreciate it. Somebody try again. I don't know what was going on there. We've never had that happen before. Try again. See what happens. 763-260-1333. Yeah. Yeah, once again, it's not working.
Call from Ryan Thomas.
Ryan Thomas, the floor is yours. First of all, I want to apologize to everybody on the phone lines. I am not sure what is going on, but go ahead, Ryan.
That was me calling the first time, so I think I got through.
I don't know. It wasn't giving me the ability to answer your call. I don't know what was going on. But anyways, thank you for your patience. Go ahead.
I think the phones were engaging in some Cloak and Dagger on you, Greg. So, I was thinking about this. I'm looking at the swivel 7, so to say. I'm possibly. I don't know if I necessarily. I don't know whether or not the dissolution theory works. I don't know if it would really work, and if it did, whoever got screwed or left out and didn't get picked up would probably have a sufficient cause to sue the others for damages, and other things related to the ESPN contract. But what I do think the purpose behind this is because of the uncertainty involved with whether or not the grant of rights could be successfully challenged or whether or not the ACC could be dissolved. I think we have to go back to understanding the Big 12 settlement with Texas and Oklahoma and why they settled. And the reason is obviously the Big 12 has a pretty ironclad grant of rights, but nobody wants to risk everything. And perhaps I think this might be those seven's way of trying to force ESPN to the table to renegotiate or to change.
That could be. But
I don't know whether it's successful. I don't know.
But would they have to keep that secret like that, though? I don't know.
But to get that coalition together, they'd probably have to initially keep it secret.
Okay.
I mean, they probably have different plans.
Okay.
And the other thing is I can see UNC, UVA, and FSU being Big Ten material. The rest of them, not so much. Maybe Miami, but the last four. I mean, the only way that they would do this is they were somehow gunning for some sort of SEC invite. And I just don't see that as being realistic. Maybe I don't know, but something just comes back to me where I think that this might just be angling to create enough uncertainty and unrest and panic to either they're trying to force something to happen, whether that's either the Big Ten or the SEC, taking the risk to invite one of them, or whether or not that's just throwing enough fear at ESPN that the whole thing could be unraveled, that it could be a huge, messy, costly court battle that I think everybody wants to avoid. I think the ultimate end goal for all this is probably some type of settlement. That to me sort of makes sense. I mean, I've always been taught and always seen that to litigate is to lose, and I think people realize that. And ESPN has a great deal, no doubt. They certainly do. They've got a sweetheart deal. They have every incentive not to open that back up. But there might come a point where ESPN may be forced to evaluate the long-term cost-benefit analysis of ride or die with this contract. And it's interesting. That could be a discussion as well in the ACC meetings today. But I think probably the more realistic angle of all this is it's trying to force some sort of settlement or try to force some sort of way for ESPN to have to renegotiate this. Now, if it means killing the gore at 2028 rather than 2036, I don't know. But I think the end game is to force some sort of either a settlement so people can part their ways, or forcing ESPN to reopen things and perhaps throw some more money at that. At them. I'm not saying that's going to work, Greg, and I don't know if it will work. I have no clue, but I can certainly see that as a strategy. Because I just don't know. I mean, the SEC. I don't know. They seem rather cool on expansion. I could see them wanting FSU and Clemson, but Virginia Tech and NC State, It brings new markets for them, sure, and maybe, but I just don't see that as something that's urgent on their list. And based on what their commissioner has said, I don't think that they really want to do anything. I mean, don't get me wrong, and I hate to tell ACC or SEC fans this, but I think the SEC is extremely vulnerable in the sense that long term, being a regionalized conference, solely relying on ESPN, I think the SEC faces a great danger if the Big Ten is able to lure in FSU, a Miami, and a Georgia Tech, and a UNC, and get right there in the heart of SEC territory and get the Big Ten network and exposure. I think at that point that it's game over for the SEC. And people can laugh at me and mock at me, but I think that the SEC has some risk and vulnerability here. Now, whether or not they see that, the one way to solidify themselves is to help the Big Ten kill off the ACC. But whether or not they see that, I don't know. I certainly think that the Big Ten is in the strongest position of any Power 5 conference moving forward because they have, currently right now 3 different providers, and probably eventually maybe ESPN gets in there on the next deal and they have 4 providers if they have enough teams. I don't know, but I certainly think that right now being positioned to have a national conference that goes all throughout the country, and I think that the Big Ten probably wants to add 2 Pacific schools, Oregon and Washington, and 2 Atlantic schools, Southeast schools, preferably, preferably down in one in Florida and perhaps UNC. I don't know if UVA is really a target because the main population boost of the state of Virginia is where I live in Northern Virginia, where there's already a Big Ten network because of Maryland. And it's sort of, Maryland has a pretty significant presence in Northern Virginia as well. So, looking at that, I think UNC and FSU would probably be the 2 targets if I'm the Big Ten. But, I'm just rambling on, Greg, but I think right now it's sort of it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I think that, I think right now this might be posturing from the ACC to try to force something to happen. They're probably just throwing spaghetti at the wall. Whether it sticks, I don't know. But they are definitely making an active effort to open this thing up and to either force ESPN to reopen the negotiation and throw more money in there, or to blow up the conference. And if ESPN's faced with the threat of having that entire conference blow up, it might be cheaper for them to settle and maybe, meet the ACC halfway in the middle somewhere. But we'll see. Those are my thoughts. Hopefully everything goes well, and have a great day, Greg.
Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. Yeah, I got a feeling the SEC is going to be just fine years down the road. If ESPN doesn't take all their content, they'll have other providers, and the SEC is going to be, they're the strongest conference in the land. They win the championships in football. I think the SEC is going to be just fine. I do think they're extremely interested in the state of North Carolina and Virginia for obvious. See the line, the numbers, the phone calls are just not coming in. It is extremely, extremely. Yeah, they're just the lines, the phones aren't not working today for whatever reason.
Call from
Lewis, thanks for calling. I'm glad that you were able to get in. Monavision, I'm sorry. We're having problems with the phone lines, probably really for the first time ever since we started this channel. Lewis, I was hoping that you were going to call because
it'll be a brief call, but yeah. Go ahead.
Duke is not in that Magnificent Seven. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm not surprised. Duke will be okay to some degree, regardless. Their main sport is basketball.
Yeah.
It will not be devastating if they're left out. They have a basketball program, and basketball and all this is going to spin out much more differently than football.
Yeah.
In some respects. And so you really cannot have a national championship, even if the Big Ten and the SEC break away. If Duke and Kansas and other perennial brands, championship brands, aren't in the basketball tournament, that won't work. I mean, so, and Duke is an academic school. But I'm not surprised that they're not in that list. It's quite possible Virginia Tech and NC State were included only because they share regents.
Yeah.
And there could be almost between the regents of the same schools. By doing that, don't forget Virginia got Virginia Tech into the ACC, and Carolina and State literally do share the same leadership. So none of that is surprising. The number of schools is surprising, but I heard that Alan Jackson, the country singer, was at the ACC meetings today, and he did a rendition of Who's Cheating Who, the 1994 country hit. So I don't know if you're familiar with that, but he's there, because that's really what it's about now. But now we know who is cheating who. This was foreseeable, though, the day that Texas and Oklahoma announced their departure from the Big 12. This is all now about brands, and the best brands simply are not going to long-term stay there. And I'm glad it's out in the open. I've been saying it in ACC circles among people I know at Duke for some time. This is coming, and they're saying no. And I'm glad it's out there. Now, maybe they hold on legally and they just live in angst for 10 years or 13 years in an unhappy marriage for 13 years until the granted rights finally ends. But you have to think that's not the case. You can't brand a conference. You can't have stability when you know the top brands want out. And if nothing else, the 7 of them and a couple others, they could jettison the schools like the Boston Colleges of the world and the Syracuse that are good schools, but they don't have the passionate fan base that a Virginia Tech has, that an NC State has. And so they could just jettison, do their own conference, if nothing else, and focus on football. But I hope that doesn't happen, but it's inevitable that it was going to happen. And I'm kind of glad it's out there now. But it's going to take some time, like anything else. Remember, Texas, Oklahoma was 2 years ago, and we're still dealing with the aftershocks of that. It's going to take a few years to wend its way through. You might be right. Mo and Vision might be right. Notre Dame might leave, and that would probably accelerate it if Notre Dame actually joined the conference. I still think that's not likely to happen, but we can disagree on that. But
can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Who do you think? How did we get to this morning where we had this story dropped on us at the beginning of the ACC meetings? Who leaked this to Ross Dellinger, and why did they leak it?
Oh, I
had no idea.
Presumably, probably one of the schools that's out. Because these schools, I mean, because it's not really good to have this out there, that this publicly.
Yeah.
Because there are arguably all kinds of issues and FOA requests, and to say, oh, they're actually meeting and working together. If that's what the story was, they're meeting in some kind of concert. That's very dangerous to do.
Yeah. Yes.
That's the case. Well, that's not really discussed in the article, and I don't know that anyone's going to do anything about it. It's not surprising, but it's probably a school. I mean, that's how it usually is. It's someone who's on the outs. A&M didn't like what was going on with Texas, and they leaked it. Did a lot of damage to the CFP for about a year because of their leak. And it was really Mike Tranghese that talked to Hoops Weiss and sort of outed Miami and Virginia. Not Virginia Tech, Miami, and at the time Syracuse and Boston College going to the ACC back in around 2002. So it's probably somebody that's on the outs that wanted it out there because they're going to be in the same meeting. And it's not easy when you're in a room together to lie. And now nobody has to lie. The 7 schools know who they are. They can have a frank discussion, and there's nothing shocking about it. The ACC cannot compete financially, and some of those schools really want to. Others don't. Wake Forest is happy with what they're getting. Boston College happy with what they're getting. But the top schools want more. That's obvious. It's known, and we'll see if anything can come out of it. I suspect eventually it will. But overall, I am concerned about whether or not there will be a long-term college football middle class. especially what the Big 12 represents.
Yeah.
There are schools that people would say they can't win a national title, but they can certainly give any school a run for their money on any given day.
Yeah.
And I hope that's still the case. Otherwise, I think it will be, because legally you'll get Congress involved if they try to exclude too many states and too many schools from the money. They'll have to do something. They don't want. Nobody wants to deal with that in the midst of anything else, NIL and all the other legal battles. There'll be a resolution, but it could end up being that we finally get to around 50 or 60 schools, and those schools will be expected to invest hundreds of millions of dollars in their facilities and to pay the players. And that's who we might end up emerging from this. But I don't know, because if you're the Big 12, how do you compete with the other two schools monetarily and claim you're in the same playing field? Very interesting to see what happens. I'm glad today is out there. And, of course, it's overshadowed everything in the Pac-12 where –
finally,
there was still no positive news. I thought we were going to have some positive news. Was there some positive news?
Well, Jim Williams did put out a little article saying he was interviewing somebody with knowledge of the situation. Apple TV is still in it. They're talking to 9 different linear networks, and they're all confident a deal can get done. It wasn't not a whole lot of positive stuff in there, but they did get something out there. Which I thought
it's Groundhog Day again.
Yeah.
That's exactly what that sounds like. They've been saying that same song and dance for 10 months.
Yeah,
that needs to be. We're doing a deal. They're very patient, but this news is going to cause further concerns. Because some schools are going to get left way out. I mean, they're going to have $60 million a year TV schools. You're going to have $30 million schools, and you're going to have $5 to $7 million schools.
Yeah.
And none of these schools in the ACC or the Pac-12 want to be in that $5 to $7 million MWC or American Conference range. They at least want to be in the $30 million range, give themselves a puncher's chance at the program. And so that's what you're going to see. There's a lot of scrambling in the next few months and really a few years. It'll probably take a few years or at least 2 or 3 years before the ACC is resolved, but at least we now know that the schools want out. And I'm glad it's out there, because it's been it's been a dark secret in the ACC for some time. All right. Hey, Greg, have a great day.
Thank you so much, Lewis. Great phone call. Appreciate it, sir. Okay, let's see if we can get the next phone call. It seems to be going every other one. I'm not sure what the heck is going on. 2 in a row. We're okay.
Call from. To accept, press 1.
Okay, I couldn't hear what you said.
Monavision, Greg.
Monavision, make sure we can hear you. Get your, we can barely hear you.
All right, can you hear me better now?
Yep, sounds good.
Okay. Once again, I will respectively disagree with Lewis, Notre Dame, the Big Ten. In addition, you wanted to know who leaked that news, Greg. Well, in any good investigation, you have to ask who benefits most. Who benefits most from that news being leaked, Greg?
I don't know. I don't know who benefits this the most.
The Big Ten benefits most.
Oh.
And I'm sure one of these subset 7, flip them 7, whatever you want to call them, who intends to secure a deal with the Big Ten and leak that information. This is the all last call, apparently. It's also a message to Notre Dame again. If the ACC blows up, what are you going to do? Yeah, schedule-wise. You can't. The days of the independents are over. By hook or by crook, Notre Dame's going to have to make a decision. And I think there is only one decision they can make, which is the Big Ten. They're not going to join the SEC. They're not going to join the Big 12. They can't stay independent. The Pac we don't know about yet. And this is another, like I said, this was a shot to Notre Dame, but this was also a shot to the members of the Pac-12 that ship's filling up quick. Somebody's going to have to get on.
Yeah.
So you can either get on board or be left behind. There's just no two ways about it.
Yeah.
And I know you got a lot of calls coming in, Greg, and I'm going to wrap it up.
Got it. Thank you,
I just
sir.
want to make one point here.
Yep.
Virginia Tech is the only one I didn't understand off that list. The only way that makes sense is if Virginia Tech assumes they're 100% going to the SEC. I just don't see a spot for them in the Big Ten. So.
Got it.
All right. Talk to you later, Greg.
Appreciate it. Great call.
Call from
Western Civic.
Western Civic is on the line. Look out. The floor is yours, good sir.
Good to hear from you, Greg. Greg, I'm so tired of this. Who's going to pay to bring in the greatest institutions on the west coast of the United States? Who possibly is going to pay for that? No, I just think that's madness. I'm tired of that. But hey, Greg.
Yes.
When I call, I try and come prepared. I got a few zingers I'll try and get in here. Look.
Got it. Zing away.
This Dellinger thing is just catching up the rest of the world on what we're talking about on here. There isn't a whole lot new there, except I thought the really interesting thing was the Notre Dame quote. But like I say, and like everybody needs to understand, this stuff is, there are exceptions, but it's largely... It's been they've gone through this before. This isn't news to the insiders. They've been talking about this stuff for years. I really believe most of this is planned well in advance, and they're selling the intrigue brilliantly. Look at all the media. Look at all the media that's just sprouted up. There's all this talk now. Well, college football is now a year-round sport, and da-da-da, and it's just brilliant. And it's brilliant marketing. It just is. And so let's get to the meat of this, which is, and contrary to the last caller, please say his name because I don't want to screw it up, Greg.
Moen Vision.
Moen Vision, all due respect. Look at what they said there. The importance of the independence of Notre Dame goes beyond Notre Dame itself and the concept of independence, okay? What they're talking about is the rest of us, and what we see in the full memo that we cobbled together with the concept of the independent invitational. If the independent schools, they're not getting any special privileges where playoffs are concerned. If they don't have a year, they're not in. The independent invitational is a tool for the playoff commission to get the playoffs started early. And if an independent, is worthy of that, they can go to that. That's again early December, same time as would be the semifinals or thereabouts of the major conferences. And then you can bring in the teams that earn it, okay? And so it's a way for it to come in. And look, it's not like they're going to be playing relegated schools all the time, although that's a way for relegated schools to get in, to play Notre Dame and have a game, once in a while. But they're going to be playing the teams in the SEC and in the Big Ten. Those 2 extra slots that those teams have. So I don't see a problem. I think independence is part of what makes college football what it is. Who wants to? We don't need another just rigid, brick and mortar, blocked playoff. That's what college basketball's for. We got a lot of nuance and tradition in our game, and Notre Dame independence is part of that. And I've been looking at other independents. UConn is a really interesting situation, whether they should be one of the people to get protected independent status. And that brings me to the last zinger, and that's West Virginia. Let's go there. The Big 12 better go have their meetings in West Virginia, I'll tell you that. They don't want to be known as the Big Lubbock Conference forever. But again, West Virginia, a southern state by culture, but yet not a slave state by very definition. The things that happened in West Virginia are fundamental to where we are as a country today. It's become a working class state because of all the mining, et cetera, et cetera. They deserve protected independent status. That means, yes, a baseline. And, there needs to be, and the networks have to be involved with this, and we can figure this out. So there you have it. Senator Manchin is still carrying the NIL bill reported by the same McMurphy guy. That gives them some juice. And look, I don't think it was just 7. I'll just say that. I want to keep my, I think Duke was involved. I think Georgia Tech knows where the bread is buttered. I think it's an arbitrary picking of 7 schools, but whatever works. Pitt knows what's going on too.
Well, they do now.
We'll see what happens. I reserve the right to call later, and yeah, here it is.
Your rights are reserved here at Peek Around the Corner.
All right, it's going on. It's kind of fun to watch. But again, I think we're seeing a script for the most part. Take care, Greg.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right.
Call from
Soap.
The floor is yours. Go ahead.
Hey, Greg, it's Soap from H-Town.
Hey, how you doing, H-Town? Soap, what's going on?
Look, you and I talked about this exact scenario a few weeks ago, and I was making the point that you can't have collusion on an issue if you have a dissolvement clause in a contract, because you have to get everybody together to agree upon that dissolvement.
Okay, so there is not, as far as I know, there is not a dissolvement clause in the ACC bylaws that is out in public. However,
I'll agree that it's out in public, but I've heard about it as it's been discussed.
Okay, I haven't seen it. However,
neither have I.
However, people have said, because this is I don't know what term they use. I'll just use the word organization. That's not the right word, but this organization considered to be in the state of North Carolina, if there is not a dissolution clause within its rules or bylaws or what have you, therefore it goes to the state of California. The state of North Carolina, and the state of North Carolina says an organization shall be, and I'm not using the right word, I'm just going to use organization for now. The organization shall be dissolved by a majority vote. And majority vote in this case would be 8 votes. But that's all I got on that.
Well, that's really interesting. That's really interesting. My line was more of if dissolvement is the method in which they are going to utilize to get out of this, as opposed to going to court. I don't think the time frame for court would allow them to be ready for 2026. But if they're going to use dissolvement, then collusion itself can't be an aspect of that. And what I think, and I told you this before, what I think they're going to do is start a new conference where they take the funds that are distributed among whatever league these Magnificent Seven go to, and divide them evenly among each of their members, those 7 members, for like through 2030 or so forth. Mm-hmm. And when everybody talks about, they're not, what's ESPN going to do? ESPN's going to come out smelling like a rose. They're going to save, my estimate, about $250 million a year, because they're going to get rid of, let's just say, and I'm using this as an example, Greg, and I don't mean to step on your Big Ten feet, but let's just say that Notre Dame, Miami, Virginia, and Virginia Tech were to go to the Big Ten.
Got it.
ESPN would not be responsible for paying that $35 million a year for the next 10 years or 15 years, whatever it is left on that contract, to those schools. Likewise, they wouldn't be paying at all Wake Forest, Boston College, or Syracuse if those schools were not picked up. So you could have a scenario where Clemson, Florida, North Carolina State go to the SEC. That's 20 teams.
Yeah.
UVA, Virginia Tech, Miami, and Notre Dame, with the 2 Oregon and Washington, Big Ten, 20 teams. Then Louisville, Duke, Pitt, Georgia Tech, along with the 4 corner schools, make the Big 12, 20 teams. And inside, and what we have to keep in mind, Greg, is that what these networks want are good games so they can sell advertising dollars for them.
Yes, sir.
They've already come out and said they want the rivalries. They want the good teams to play the good teams. So this is just my belief, and I've said it to you before, that I think there's going to be an upper level, a championship level, and a relegation level in each of these conferences. And schools like Duke or Vanderbilt would be in the lower level and, the lower 10 teams. And to get to the upper 10 teams, you have to be one of the top 2 teams in the lower level. And then the other teams go down. Now, that's not going to affect your payout. It's not going to affect your payout. What it's going to do is it's going to ensure that, there are 30 teams vying for 12 spots in the playoffs. And those are all the best 30 teams in the NCAA. And you can take those lower level teams and have a playoff among them in the bowl games. If you want to do something like that, that's going to provide good content that you can sell ads for to these networks. That's what they want. They want bang for their buck. And however they have to do that or rearrange it, they're going to do it. But for someone to say that ESPN is not going to allow this, ESPN doesn't want to have to pay Syracuse and Wake Forest for the next 15 years and not get any value out of it at all. They would much rather save that money and promote the games that they have going forward, or the good games that they have going forward. But that's my take on it, and I really have enjoyed greatly listening to you, Greg. And it's funny that what we talked about looks like it's going to come to.
Who knows? It's crazy. It's crazy.
It is.
It is.
Well,
great call. Thank you.
Thanks, my friend.
Appreciate it. I mean, when I went to bed last night, I was not expecting to wake up this morning and learn that there was 7 ACC schools, and I think it's just 7. I don't think it's just those 7 are the ones who have decided to come out. They didn't come out. This was leaked to Ross Dellinger. Maybe one of them leaked this information. But this is a big news day.
Cameron B.
Cameron B., the floor is yours. Thanks for calling, good sir.
Yeah, so let's have a couple of things about the last caller. Like, I really do think that ESPN wants to keep the ACC together due to the fact that it is such a cheap property for them.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things that they were talking about with regards to the Big 12 contract in particular was ESPN's paying the Big 12 less than they're paying the ACC, and this is going to be in perpetuity throughout the entire range of that contract. So ESPN's paying the ACC less than $20 million a year, and that's before they're dealing with the entire ACC network distribution.
Yep,
so it's the entire thing is a budget for this. It's a deep discount for them.
Yep.
There is no world in which they would want to move those properties to other places to pay triple the amount of money for those schools to play football.
Yep. And again, I know I keep going back to this. I know you're talking about ESPN, and the former caller was talking about ESPN, but it's the ACC network that holds these rights. So, for example, if let's say Virginia goes to the Big Ten, without breaking that grant of rights, the Virginia goes to the Big Ten. Every Virginia home game, ESPN would still put on their network because they're licensed to show Virginia home games. And then that money would still go to the ACC offices. And then the ACC offices would distribute that money, that revenue money that was from Virginia home games. And in accordance to their bylaws, they would distribute that money. And it wouldn't go to Virginia because they're a withdrawal member of the conference. Therefore, that money would go to whatever existing schools still exist in the ACC. Therefore, Virginia wouldn't get any media money from ESPN showing their games. So it always goes back to breaking that grant of rights in the courts, or this theory that I haven't bought into because people have told me that I trust, don't buy into it. But man, it seems like it's percolating here with the news of today, or this conference gets dissolved by a simple vote somehow, some way. So it goes back to that, in my opinion. But go ahead.
No, it's incredibly unlikely that the conference gets dissolved. It just doesn't seem like a logical step in order for that to happen.
Yeah.
And like you're saying, is like, okay, Florida State goes to the SEC. All of their home games belong to the ACC. The ACC isn't going to cease to exist because these 7 schools decide they want to leave. They're going to go backfill with other schools to maintain the conference. Like, I'm a Kansas fan. Like, I've been in the Big 12 forever. We've been backfilling for the past 10 plus years with people leaving. The ACC is going to continue to exist. They're going to backfill if UNC and NC State and other schools leave. They're going to go grab Eastern Carolina. They're going to go grab Old Dominion. They're going to go grab X whatever schools they want to pluck into the ACC.
And keep in mind
that conference existed.
And keep in mind, the ESPN put millions of dollars into building the ACC network. And these individual schools in the ACC also threw in a few $1 million. So when it came to infrastructure in their campuses to have the ACC network. So you also have to throw that in the mix. The investment that ESPN has made in the ACC network, are they going to want to just see that thing go away? I don't know. I don't have the answers. Like I said on Twitter today, I've got a whole lot of questions. I have 0 answers, and I'm surprised. Maybe I am the most shocked person about the news of the Magnificent Seven having Cloak and Dagger meetings. I think it's a huge story, a huge, massive story that's going to have ripple effects far beyond today. Especially when those schools, those other ACC schools, just found out about it today that this was happening. Holy smokes.
So I'm going to make one last comment. Then I'm going to go ahead and get off the phone here.
Go ahead.
I don't think that they would have let this leak if they believed that they couldn't get something done with the gore. So that's just like just a random thought of mine. But something like this wouldn't leak. I wouldn't believe, unless that there was probably more tread on those tires, and they're probably putting some getting some traction on that. I'm not sure though.
Yeah, a lot of people share your opinion on that. So yep.
All right, thanks, Greg. Have a good
Thank you. Great call. Thank you so very much. Great phone call. Who leaked it? Why did they leak it? Did they choose today, or they gave this information SI a couple days ago to be unloaded on the first day of a 3-day ACC meetings at Amelia? It's just wow. This is a huge story. Mr. Monkey says, do you think any of this ACC news would push Colorado, Arizona either way? I think this is an impactful story on everything, including Colorado and Arizona.
Call from
Tristan Fibes.
Tristan, thanks for calling. The floor is yours, sir.
Hey, Greg. Listen, I just wanted to throw out a thought about this leak. It almost unquestionably seems like it would have come from one of the 7 schools involved.
That are in the Magnificent Seven.
Yes, the Magnificent Seven.
Okay,
yes.
And then what's the motivation to leak it? Why leak it right now, right at the start of the meetings? What do you think?
Well, number one, they have meetings, if I understand correctly, for 3 days. So today is day 1. They've got 2 more days. This may have been a way to sort of shock other schools into coming to the table to talk about possible movement. If you have the conference pursuing, every legal maneuver they can to prevent schools from leaving, then that's going to be very expensive just to litigate, and obviously it could be very expensive for schools to leave. If there's the threat of dissolution, then it could bring some of these other schools to the table and make them more willing to bargain and to say, you know what, let's not go all out on the legislation. Let's just come to an agreement.
Okay, so So you're thinking that maybe the motivation to leak this now is to gain leverage in the negotiations in regards to like unequal revenue sharing, those type of issues?
Well, unequal revenue sharing perhaps, but also probably more importantly, trying to negotiate an exit.
Okay.
Right.
Yep. And if that's the case, and you could be absolutely correct on this, the theory is logical, it sounds good. If that's the case, if we dig into that theory deeper, then all 7 of those magnificent 7 schools, all 7 of them, would have to be real confident that there's a landing spot for them, right?
Yeah.
That would increase their ability, to improve their lot in this new college football, new college sports landscape. In other words, I don't think if all that is what's going on, the motivation to leak it today, to give leverage, to say, look, we want to leverage these 7. We're leveraging ourselves to the rest of you because we want an exit out of here. To me, that would mean that they would have to be pretty confident that they would have a landing spot in the SEC or the Big Ten.
I agree.
Okay, so then let's push this even further. If all those steps are true, then the last step is, out of those 7 schools, Notre Dame would obviously get a landing spot. Who is going where out of those 7 schools, in your opinion?
Well, there's 2 possibilities.
Not to put you on the spot or anything.
Yeah, I think Notre Dame is a lock to go to the Big Ten. I just can't see them having any desire to be in the SEC.
Okay.
The question to me, the main question is, how do you handle the Virginia and North Carolina situation?
Mm-hmm.
The SEC might make an attempt to get North Carolina, NC State, Virginia Tech, and Virginia and completely block out the Big Ten.
Sure.
But I don't think, to be honest with you, that that's a very feasible approach. To increase all their revenue to SEC levels would be very expensive, and you're creating a lot of expense for ESPN that will cut into the profitability of the SEC network. So I think that there's going to have to be a split between the Big Ten and the SEC in the states of Virginia and North Carolina.
Okay.
So probably that means North Carolina and UVA to the Big, and then Virginia Tech and NC State to the SEC.
Okay. That's all sounds good. I mean, that sounds good on paper, right? You're making a lot of great points. And then, of course, you take it down to another step. To do all this, to leverage themselves, to get an exit because they feel confident in a landing spot, SEC and the Big Ten, what would the other 7 ACC schools get out of this for letting these 7 go? We know what the Big 12 schools got letting Texas and Oklahoma go. They got $100 million, about that, something like that. What would these 7 ACC schools that are not in the Magnificent 7, what do they get out of those 7 schools leaving?
Well, there still is value in the ACC, and what I mean by that is this. There's still contracts in place where they get playoff access, they have a network, right? So all of that's still there.
Yep.
As long as they maintain their television revenue, they don't really lose a whole lot, and in some ways they may gain exposure.
Okay.
Like right now, I mean, let's be honest, the ACC, the football product, for the most part, probably 90% of its success is FSU and Clemson. Okay, so if there's other schools that are sitting there looking at the situation, they could easily say, hey, you know what? If those 2 schools leave, we might get better exposure for our football product.
Okay. And okay, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, then I want to take it even another step. Okay. So then those 7 schools, they still get the ACC network. Possibly the Magnificent Seven. According to the ACC bylaws, I believe the exit fee, I believe it's 2 years of revenue, much like the Big 12. I could be wrong on that. Somebody in the chat room correct me. But let's just say $80 million a school.
Right.
Okay? And we're not, again, they're lifting the AC. If we're doing all this speculation, we're pretending here, right? Then the ACC, Gore, the damages, that's all going to get pushed aside. So those 7 schools pay $80 million. That's, how much is that? 7 times 80. What is that? 50, what is that? $560 million bucks?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
$560 million spread out to the conference and the other 7 schools. So that's 8 divided into 56, 560 million. What is that? 70 million a school, right?
Right.
So is it worth to those 7 non-Magnificent 7 schools to pocket 70 million? You still get the ACC network, and now that you have to work on backfilling, you're going to have to probably add at least 3 schools to the ACC. Would all that work?
It might.
It might.
I mean,
I don't know.
I can't guarantee anything.
Yeah, none of us can.
Right, but it would, one of the weaknesses of the ACC is the fact that they have 4 universities in the state of North Carolina.
Yeah.
And this would be an opportunity for the conference to sort of spread out a little bit more, and they do have the network, so you get opportunities to increase carriage rates into new states. Right, so just for example, a school like Tulane could be a possibility for the ACC. It's just an idea. I mean, there's probably not a long list of schools, but any new state that they get into does represent an increase in revenue for the conference.
Wow. Great phone call. A lot of interesting speculation. Again, I did not expect to wake up this morning and get hit with the news that there was Cloak and Dagger meetings going on with the Magnificent Seven.
Yeah, it is shocking, isn't it?
It is shocking. It's shocking.
It seems to have come out of thin air, but I think one of the previous callers made a point that he thought that this was orchestrated, and I agree. I think a lot of the decisions do get made ahead of time, but they have to go through, I guess, maybe kind of a dog and pony show to get the fan base on board with the decision that's been made.
Yeah.
That might be what's going on here.
I don't know. We've seen this before. We've seen that there was so much Cloak and Dagger stuff going on with the USC to the Big Ten, and I lived it. And this is like this times 100. I mean, whatever happens here in the ACC, it's going to take a while. It's going to be dramatic. It's going to make everything that's happened up until now look like child's play when it comes. We were just talking about that last night or yesterday afternoon, whenever we did our live show. I don't even remember anymore. We said whatever happens in the ACC is going to make everything else look like child's play.
Yes, I remember you saying that.
And here we are. We're one day, the next day, and we get this bomb dropped on us. And again, I'm going to say it. We had Peek Around the Corner did not give you a good peek at this. We had no idea this was happening. And it sounds like nobody knew this was going on, including the other ACC schools. I started this live show telling you all Peek Around the Corner had no clue that this was going on. We know the story that happened in the Pac-12 last weekend. Not this last weekend, but the previous weekend. And we haven't been able to tell that story. We had that story. We did not have this story. No way, no how. Holy smokes. I'm still floored by it, and it's been 4 or 5 hours since the story broke.
Yeah, and Greg, I mean, I know you're not surprised by any of this, but the message boards and the forums are all going crazy, and
the impact on this is immeasurable, and where this thing goes, it's, I'm not using the word fluid as a cop out. It's fluid. This stuff, there's so many variables in this, man. There's the networks. It's the relationships between the presidents, the athletic directors. Relationships matter in all this. You're going to have some hurt feelings in those ACC meetings today, tomorrow, Wednesday. How this all breaks, I don't know, but we're going to follow it here at Peek Around the Corner. And I hope you guys all hang with us here because we're going to be following this story.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't know where this, we're going to give you, when we're done with this live show, my phone is beeping all the time. I'm looking at it while I'm talking to you guys. And I'll give you guys some information if I can't give you, I just don't go with anything. The Florida State Money Perch warned us December 26, 2022, but he did not have this information. He confirmed that with us before we went on live, about an hour before we went on live. Nobody had this information that I know of.
Well, I will throw this one last comment out for you, and then I'll go because I've been on a while. But the War Chant message boards, there was a lot of hopes and / expectations that there would be fireworks at this meeting. And this was, I think,
they got it
by some of what Regal Knoll was posting. He was saying he was telling FSU fans to expect some kind of activity or movement in this direction.
Yeah.
So thanks a lot, Greg.
Great
I appreciate the call.
Great call. Thank you, sir. Okay, we went deep diving on that one. Just, we're just speculating here, ladies and gentlemen. Opie, thank you so much. Wow, your incredible generosity to this show. Okay, I'm not here for the last 2 shows. My question is how much influence... Hold on.
Call from
Kansas State fan.
Kansas State fan, can you just hold on for 1 second?
Of course, Greg.
Please, thank you so much. Opie says, okay, I'm not here for the last 2 shows. My question is, how much influence will ESPN have in this to be made whole? If you have to answer it, if I have answered it, sorry, I will listen later tonight or another live show tonight. Yeah, we may have to go live again tonight. Opie, how much influence ESPN? I'm guessing they'll have a lot of influence. But again, they're not the courts. They're not these ACC schools that are the Magnificent Seven. I don't know if they're going to play an invisible hand in this. I wouldn't think they would at the beginning of this process, but if things are going pear-shaped, if they perceive things are going pear-shaped and this conference is going to blow up because of something in the grant of rights that none of us have seen, if FSU can successfully say that there was fraud in that grant of rights, that they weren't given enough consideration when they extended the gore, I have no idea. I'm spending most of these shows saying that I have no idea. I don't know why anyone wants to watch the show anymore. Because this stuff, obviously, look, how many people knew this bomb was dropping today? Not I. How much influence will ESPN have? They're going to have some, but man, oh man, some of this goes against their interests, but some of this they don't control. But thank you so much, Opie. Again, I'm not able to answer your great questions. A lot of questions here I'm not able to answer. We started this show, I said I have a ton of questions, and I have 0 answers as this bomb dropped. Throughout the day, I'm going to be calling my, the BTM, his associates, other people. I'll try to give you that little bit of intel that we give you here at Peek Around the Corner. But holy smokes, I mean, this is a bomb. And right now we're all taking cover. This is in the fog of war right now. Our heads are spinning. and we'll see what this means. But, man, inside the ACC meeting, there's reporters there. They're going to report it. Who knows what's going to come out of that just today, this afternoon? It could be explosive. And what about the Pac-12 meeting? Is Kliavkoff going to be able to present any decent deal to those presidents? What's Colorado and Arizona thinking right now as this bombshell comes out of ACC country? I don't have the answers, my friends. I just don't possibly have the answers. Then you got Notre Dame sitting there, Oregon and Washington. Thank you, caller. Thank you for your patience. The floor is absolutely yours, sir.
Well, I appreciate it, Greg, and oh my goodness, I can agree with you more. It's just a complete whirlwind of chaos that is just starting to take place. I'm also a first-time caller, but a long-time listener, so
appreciate you calling.
Of course, I'm going to try and chime in here real quickly just to kind of give the overall layout from my perspective. So the Pac-12, they're having their meetings today in Seattle. The ACC is having their meetings out in Amelia Island. I was just talking to one of my friends about this, and we were just kind of talking about, all right, so which conference now seems to be further at risk, because now this complete bombshell is just completely taking us by storm. And on top of that, now you got the Pac-12. They're still trying to figure out what's happening with their media deal. And I went to tell them, like, I think out of the two conferences, I'd still lean towards the Pac-12 since their media rights deal deadline is coming up, and they're going to have to make a decision soon. So San Diego State's exit fee wouldn't. Well, and on top of that, there's also a lot of concern with what the Big 12 is possibly going to do with Arizona, Colorado, and maybe Arizona State along with that as well. I will say the only way I can see the ACC staying intact is just one of these two scenarios. It's if ESPN is going to somehow increase the revenue to prevent the demise of the ACC, and particularly the ACC network, in which they have been pouring a lot of money towards. Either that, or all the schools will just buy in with the unequal revenue sharing as well. But I'm not seeing any appeal with Pitt or Syracuse agreeing to the unequal revenue sharing. And on top of that, I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong about this, but if ESPN does decide to go with the additional revenue towards the ACC, wouldn't that instantly open up a grant of rights,
I think that's all semantics. I think to get that new deal, all those schools would have to sign the new grant of rights. So I don't think that's. I do not see the ESPN opening up that contract just to give everybody in that conference a new deal. I don't see that happening. I mean, they have they have shareholders. I don't see it happening. But again, I did not see this happening this morning. So
I did not see, well, okay, I will admit I did see. I mean, the schools like Clemson, Miami, North Carolina, like those are really the power brokers of the ACC. So I could see those schools coming, but I wasn't expecting for the next few schools, like especially with NC State and Virginia Tech, chiming in these conversations as well. I did not fully see that coming, but I don't know if there's going to be much done with this current contract, but like in terms of this summer or the next 2 or 3 summers, but I just don't see any desire for Florida State and Clemson to remain in the ACC while they're seeing their foes like Florida and Maryland and Rutgers. They're making twice as much, and at the same time, they're now having to deal with UCF. In the new Big 12, they're gonna dwarf their revenue size as well. And I think if you look back at the War Chance article, that's something that's not sliding well with Alford, the athletic director at Florida State, and same goes for Miami as well. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. It's going to be even more interesting to see what happens with the likes of Louisville, Pittsburgh, especially some of those type of schools that may end up in the Big 12, and just seeing how it all pans out. But Greg, I'll let you back at it. You've done a great job for the college football community throughout the offseason, and we look forward to hearing more of your content.
Appreciate it. Thank you for those kind words. Thank you very much. Okay, going to catch up on some super chat. Tony, can you spill the beans on December 26th now? I have, Tony. I did it on March 31st live show. I did some of it last night. I can't tell you who asked me to stand down, but the reporters knew on December 26, 2022, people found out that we knew at Peek Around the Corner that Florida State were getting their ducks in a row, going to make a move to potentially challenge the grant of rights. It was a serious thing. We did not know about the Magnificent Seven. Who knows if the meetings had even started by December 26, 2022. People found out that we had a lot of that story. It wasn't just about Florida State. It was Miami of Florida. It was North Carolina. And but we did not want to. We decided to stand down. Then Florida State made a big public posture about this. They came out in the open. Mike Alford talked about it. So on March 31st, we did a live show. And we went through the Florida State options about how they could challenge the grant of rights in the court. The ACC grant of rights. March 31st, we had no idea that there was a Magnificent Seven meetings going on. We were told, we were told all this information. One of the things Mr. Monkey says here, he asks, is this a collusion problem? Some people say, no, it isn't. We were told, yes, this would be a collusion problem. We'll see how that plays out. But we have spilled the beans since then, Tony. Again, I can't get into who talked to us, and there were reporters sitting there. Obviously, there's reporters sitting on the ACC story. We just saw Ross Dellinger throw a big bombshell out this morning. Holy smokes. Brett McMurphy from Action Network has confirmed Ross Dellinger's reporting and gave out the Magnificent Seven names. Ross Dellinger comes back and confirms Brett McMurphy's reporting on who the seven Magnificent schools are. So there's seven. There's seven schools. I don't think there's an eighth or ninth school that has been in this meeting. So I have, to the point that I possibly can, have spilled the beans on the December 26th. But we did not know there was a Magnificent Seven. And who knows, maybe it started here after December 26, 2022. I don't know. But thank you so much for the super chat. Appreciate it, Tony. Cameron B. I think ESPN would convert the ACC network into a Big 12 network if the ACC loses enough. Could be. It very well could be. Again, all those ACC schools invested. I don't know. You'd have to go back, Google it. A lot of articles are written on it. But Boston College, Wake Forest, they invested money. All the schools invested money in infrastructure at their campus to get the ACC network to be optics and all that kind of stuff. So that's a possibility. That's a possibility. Big 12 does not have a conference network, not in the way that you would. We've gone down that rabbit hole. We don't have time to go down that rabbit hole again on this show. Possibly. Cameron B., thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate, again, your generosity to this channel, for your input. Thank you so very much. Back to the phone line, 763-260-1333, 763-260-1333. And again, PATC. I ask you to put your head on a swivel. Make sure, as we're doing this live show, if there's some breaking news, put it in the chat. Call us at 763-260-1333 to tell us what the next report is. because when it comes to this type of stuff, when this bombshell hits, the reporters, they're running about. They're trying to get information. They're going to give more and more into the story. The Magnificent Seven, as Brett McMurphy of Action Network has labeled these 7 schools. There's more to this. They didn't meet just once, according to Ross Dellinger. They have met many times over the last few months. This is serious, man. This is serious. Cloak and Dagger. Cloak and Dagger. Cloak and Dagger. Woo! Okay, thank you so much. Let's get to your comments again. The phone line's open. 763-260-1333 is the number for Peek Around the Corner. Wow. Woo! Nathan Barnhart says Big Ten and the networks want full stadiums, period. USC, Oregon, Washington, they do just that. Architects, can't wait for that classic Big Ten matchup. South Carolina, oh no, I'm sorry. USC versus Georgia Tech. Secret Agent says the Pac-12 is done. It's all over but the singing. What reports are going to come out of the Pac-12 meeting today? But got to get some... Pac-12's got to come out and get some believable positive spin coming out of this meeting. The vultures are circling. There's vulnerable presidents sitting on the edge trying to decide should they stick or go. And we said here at Peek Around the Corner, some big stuff happened 8 days ago in the Pac-12. And that story is going to come out. Much like what the Ross Dellinger bomb came out. There's going to be a story coming out. And the Pac-12 is hanging by a thread. And here at Peek Around the Corner, we think if they can get all this vulnerable stage here in the next... Every week, we at Peek Around the Corner are going to lower the point spread. We got a Pac-12 school being poached at a 6.5 point favorite. It was a high of 8.5 point favorite when the hot bubble of action was happening last weekend. But every week that we get past that now, we're going to drop the margins down a point. So we think as time goes on, the Pac-12 has a better chance of sticking together. However, it's going to take a while before that the line drops down to 0. So Pac-12 is still vulnerable, extremely vulnerable. But if they can survive another week and another week, maybe they can turn the corner. We still don't believe there. I know there's reports out there that there's a deal in sight, but usually when there's a deal in sight, you get some positive steam, some leaks with a little bit of real numbers and real attachment to real media partners. We haven't seen that yet. So we are very dubious. We don't really believe they are close to a deal. One more thing. I've been seeing comments still, for whatever reason, on message boards and Twitter. This back screen, this is a wall. This is a poster. Okay? This is not a screen by any means. That's a real wall. Okay? I don't know. I keep seeing comments. Greg has that green screen. Why doesn't he change? Whatever. That's a real... I don't know. People are consumed with the little details on this show. But just, again, laying it out there. It's a wall back there. Okay. Who cares? I don't know. People care. They seem to care. Thanks for answering my question. Greg, no strings attached, Flugar. There are no strings attached. We are an independent college football YouTube channel. We are the rebel outpost of all college football YouTube channels. But we do have to treat stories with some sort of professionalism because we're talking to people. We got to protect their sources. And so we have to, I want to be able to harvest the field over and over and over again. I don't want to just, I could put out a story right now, break a story that happened with some details within the Pac-12, but I can't. I really can't do it. So we were trusted with information. It's going to come out. When it comes out, we're going to go in full details, just like we've done with other stories here at Peek Around the Corner. Okay, back to the comments, back to the phone calls, 763-260-1333. Yeah, the Pac is still standing, and they took a big blow. Many people don't believe they took a big blow at all about 8 days ago. But just hold your fire on that because they did. But they're vulnerable. We still got it a 6.5 point favorite that the Pac-12 is going to get poached again. 6.5, that's a pretty good. So we're not saying that Pac-12 have survived, but they're still standing. As of today, we don't believe there's any Pac-12 school that has asked for a Big 12 application. When that happens, if that happens, then it's happening. Because schools don't ask for a conference application unless they know for sure it's going to be accepted. And the conference doesn't deliver that application unless they know the schools for sure are going to say yes. So, but right now it's still standing. But hanging by a thread. And of course, in the Pac-12, the news that came out, the bombshell from Ross Dellinger, of course it impacts. It impacts what the Pac-12 presidents are thinking, what they should do. Should they jump now or should they jump 5 years from now? Or maybe are some of those Pac-12 schools thinking, maybe Washington and Oregon, maybe there won't be a spot in the Big Ten for them. Maybe we can make this last. Maybe we can survive as a conference, as a one-region conference over in the Pacific Coast. They better not be thinking that because I would strongly advise against that thinking. But maybe a Colorado and Arizona are thinking, maybe there won't be a landing spot for Washington in an Oregon. Maybe we'll take this deal and last another 5 years and see what's going to happen. Maybe one of those 7 magnificent ACC schools that have been having these secret meetings, maybe as the callers have said previously, maybe they leaked it. Maybe they leaked this information. Maybe it was a signal to the SEC, to the Big Ten, to say, hold on, Big Ten. Don't put the squeeze. Don't help put the squeeze on the Pac-12. Don't take in Oregon and Washington now or 5 months from now. Because who knows what's going to happen. We're working on something here. So maybe it was one of the 7 magnificent schools that leaked the information. We don't know at Peek Around the Corner. But lots of cloak and dagger going on here. Lots of cloak and dagger. It was a big bombshell. Hold on 1 second. I got to check a message here. Hold on, everybody.
Call from
Parting thought from Western Civic.
Western Civic, parting thoughts. The floor is yours, sir.
So I wanted to look into these 7 schools, and that's really interesting. those 7. I mean, we learn a lot from someone choosing that number, whoever it is, or if they really were the 7. There's a lot to learn there. But let's go back to the very first phone call I ever called you for, Greg, and that is to remember this fact. If the Big breaks into the South in any way, and that includes Georgia Tech, and it's really interesting, if they break in any way, that's it. You're going to have, there's no way for the SEC to reach 25 teams, at least not 25 teams that you would consider, legitimate candidates for being an SEC school. And that's just math. And as far as the pack goes, imagine, this is what my Lebuckian friends, please.
Yeah.
Imagine being Arizona, in the state of Arizona, and signing up to not play in California. And that's really true of any Pac school. It's certainly true of Utah. I try and keep my expertise west as much as I can. But, and look, Colorado didn't ramp up its football program to go to the Big 12, y'all. I'm sorry. That's not what their goal was. And so it's just really hard to imagine. I mean, it'd be a total failure, especially maybe not for Colorado. They've been there before. You could sort of envision it. But for those of us on the other side of the mountains right there, I mean, we really look west. For us to have to cross the Rockies every time we go to play a game, it's just besides of making fun of Ames and Waco and Lubbock and all of that, just that aside, it's just not where we're focused. I mean, everybody in Utah goes to California once or twice a year. It's just what we've just done. It's just part of where we are geographically. And so, anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. But if you also, then the last thing about the 7 schools, what's most interesting about this, and like I said, if you go back to the math, it's fascinating to me that UNC and UVA have sort of realized, to me, for them to associate with Miami and Florida State in this endeavor, and to hook up with them, some serious, and NC State for that matter, who I don't see going to the SEC. I see them going to the third conference, the Big 12. But for them to associate with them in this is an understanding that they're not going to the Big, I think. But it's interesting, Georgia Tech. Why is not Georgia Tech in there? Now, I'm not an expert, but I've heard a lot of rumors. There's this fight between Georgia Tech and the SEC, and so I'm sure there's going to be a whole subcategory of stories out of that. But I think there's a lot to learn from that, but you can't hedge the math. You can't reach 25 if the Big goes south, and they're either going to manage all of college athletics or the antitrust lawsuits begin.
Yeah.
So we'll see you soon, Greg. Maybe we'll see you on the next live stream. Thanks a million, Greg.
Yeah, you got it. Thanks for the phone call.
See ya.
Yep. Larry Pilgrim says Danny Cannell of CBS Sports says it's nothing but saber rattling and nothing will come from the meeting. A lot of saber rattling though. Boy, that is loud. That's a loud saber rattling. Yeah, I mean, obviously nothing will come from the meetings as in the Magnificent Seven, or nothing will come from the meeting, Larry, when it comes to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday meeting this week. Obviously, nothing's going to come from these 3-day meetings. But that is saber rattling. Wow, that's a lot of saber rattling. That's loud. Everyone heard it today. Moen Vision says Georgia Tech is a Big Ten target. No doubt in his mind. I had something here I wanted to point out. And it looks like I can't find it. Killer Wall says there's an athletic article that Nicole shared. Just now, Killer Wall, did Nicole Arbach just put out an article? Is that what you're saying? Hold on, everybody. Hold on. Again, this is live. We're just yeah, I did see that, Cameron. Florida State, Clemson, Virginia, North Carolina, Miami were to become available. That's the real major domino to fall in conference realignment. No question about it. The Big Ten, for the Big Ten, they've wanted to go east, back east once again. Let's see here. I'm not finding any. I'm not finding a new Nicole Auerbach article. So if someone can DM me with that, if that is indeed the case, let me know. Oh, I just got it. Okay. I just got it. So what's going to happen here is... Okay, come on. It's not popping up for me. Come on. Here we go. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and read this article. Nicole Auerbach, The Athletic. The ACC's annual spring meetings are underway in Amelia Island, Florida, and are expected to end by midday Wednesday. It's the first time the league's top administrators will gather in person since Florida State's athletic director Michael Alford publicly lambasted the ACC's current equal revenue sharing model and said something has to change because Florida State could not compete nationally if it falls $30 million behind its peers in the SEC and the Big Ten on an annual basis. Those comments made in front of his board of trustees back in February made waves nationally and were followed up by similar calls for consideration of uneven revenue sharing from his counterparts at Clemson, Miami, and North Carolina. ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips has acknowledged the league's position relative to the SEC and the Big Ten, and has hired outside help to find new revenue streams for a conference locked into its media rights deal through 2036. What it would cost to try to get out of the ACC before the time is unclear. The exit fee alone is $120 million. So I had it at $80 million, so it must be 3 years of revenue, media revenue. So that would be $120 million, not counting the Gore cost, not counting the cost to get out of the grant of rights, even if it's possible. $120 million. So keep your mind on that. And there is also the issue of breaking the ACC grant of rights, which has not been challenged to date and is presumed to be airtight by most. Lawyers for the subset of schools were calling them the Magnificent Seven. That's what Brett McMurphy called them. The lawyers for the Magnificent Seven schools have been thoroughly examining the document. One industry source said he was told that 7 ACC schools are aligned on this. If it were simple, everybody would have done it already, the source pointed out. So, if it was simple to break this grant of rights, it would have already been done by now. The Gore piece is important because the ACC would continue to own the broadcast rights of all of its teams' home games, even if that team were to pay the exit fee and leave. That's what we've been saying here at Peek Around the Corner. Is there a dollar figure that a school could pay to get its rights back? Even if it's exorbitant, it could be worth paying to get the league that will bring in $30 million more per member annually. One ACC source said his expectation for this week's meetings was to advance the ball on revenue distribution changes, which we believe doesn't solve anything. But though he acknowledged it won't close the gap for schools like Clemson and Florida State compared to schools in the Big Ten and the SEC, it's about incremental change and moving toward a system that rewards on-field or on-the-court success, he said. Some of the schools' presidents are expected to be in Florida in person for their portion of the meetings. Others will video conference in. Again, this meeting lasts for 3 days. Tension among ACC schools have been a hot topic, both inside and out of the league this offseason. The question has come up in nearly every conversation with any administrator in any league for weeks. When is one or more of the ACC schools going to challenge the ACC grant of rights? Could it be this summer? Next year? Or much closer to the end of the contract that runs through 2036? Everyone knows there's our disgruntled members, led by Florida State and Clemson. But it's not quite clear what would be required legally and financially to attempt to exit the ACC prior to 2036. There's a big difference between saying you want to do something like that and actually executing it, one league source said. What was perhaps the most interesting was the amount of attention paid to the ACC at another set of spring meetings. Those that took place earlier this month in Scottsdale, Arizona. The Big 12 and Pac-12 formally met there, as they always do, and a good amount of Big Ten football coaches and athletic directors came out for a few days for the Fiesta Bowl sponsored events. There were agents, search firm representatives, and other industry leaders networking, as well as reporters. There was much speculation about the future of the ACC and what it could mean for the rest of major college athletics. Most of the administrators who spoke to the Athletic in Scottsdale were much more interested in the possibility of the ACC floodgates being open and what that could mean for the Big Ten and the SEC, which will both be at 16 members as of 2024. Then they were about discussing the current standoff between the Pac-12 and the Big 12 over schools such as Colorado and Arizona. If Florida State, Clemson, Virginia, North Carolina, and Miami were to become available, that's a real and major domino to fall in conference realignment. As one Big Ten source put it, those schools are where the real value is. That person was particularly interested in Virginia and North Carolina as new states and or markets for the Big Ten to extend down the East Coast. This Big Ten source believes expansion out east makes more sense than expanding into the Pacific Northwest, which has had not nearly enough support internally or among the league's media partners since the idea was first broached. University of Illinois Chancellor Robert J. Jones told The Athletic last month there was no sense of urgency for the expand beyond USC, UCLA. Okay, I'm going to skip that paragraph because they go through Robert J. Jones again. The SEC does not appear interested in going beyond 16 members anytime soon, although that could change if certain ACC schools become available. The Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti says his main priority right now is determining how to integrate its two Los Angeles schools into the league. But someone or someones will have to challenge the ACC grant of rights to get out, and they wouldn't want to do that unless they knew they had a landing spot in one of the two richest leagues. But they also can't commit to one of those leagues without knowing for sure they can get out of the grant of rights. It's a chicken or the egg situation. As for now, the ACC schools are not available. Will it stay that way? That's the article from The Athletic, just released about 30 minutes ago from Nicole Arbach. The real value is out east. The Big Ten's always going to be going out east once again. No question about it. And when those schools become available, the SEC's probably going to be eating first, but we'll see on that. It depends on how the ACC implodes. Does it wait all the way to 2034 before it implodes, or before that? Again, we're back to this situation. How does a ACC school challenge the grant of rights? When do they do it? How do they do it? Or does this theory of dissolution, does that actually happen? And again, we, as Peek Around the Corner, have been saying forever. The people in the Big Ten told us well before June 30th that once USC +1 enters into the Big Ten, the Big Ten's going to want to expand east again. But to balance the composition of the conference, they're not done out west. And there's interested in Oregon and Washington. But I concur, of course, with what's being said. The biggest value is definitely out east. The Big Ten's always was going to advance out east again. We've been saying that since we opened up this YouTube channel. There's no question about it, but the question is when. When can they do it? Ross Dellinger, huge news. Dropped the bomb on all of us. The Magnificent Seven have been talking. Cloak and Dagger meetings. Wow. So, but can they do anything about it? Can they do anything about it? That's the question. That's the question. Well, we've been on for over 2 hours. We're going to close it down here in this incredible live show. We thank you so much for all coming. Please, before you leave, subscribe to our channel. Smash that like button. We thank you for all the great comments and the donations to help us keep the lights on. We're going to be following this story. We may very well go on later tonight for another live show, especially if this story gets pushed forward. And the ACC story is always going to hinge around what school is going to challenge the ACC grant of rights. How can they do it? But this was a bombshell today. Ross Dellinger, Magnificent Seven, meeting Cloak and Dagger style. Brett McMurphy broke the news on which 7 schools those are. Wow. Unbelievable. So stick with us here at Peek Around the Corner. We're going to be following all of this. We can pop up at any time. So please, before you leave, subscribe to this channel. You'll get notified of when we come up next. And it could be later tonight. Until next time, from all of us at PATC to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.